What's up, y'all? Will here at Schedulefly, and this is the Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast, brought to you by us here at Schedulefly, restaurant employee scheduling software, simple software, legendary customer service, and also brought to you by our two freaking awesome sponsors, Pop Menu and Kickfin. And we're super proud to have them as sponsors because they're awesome companies. So you'll hear more about them coming up soon, but first let's talk about Jeff Dixon, CEO of Provision Concepts, Edmond, Oklahoma, right outside of Oklahoma City. Oh my goodness, this conversation gave me so much energy. Man, this guy and his team are crushing it. And in like a decade, they're up to 30 million in revenue, got a bunch of locations. They're going to be doing 60 million in revenue. Well, I'll let him tell you when. In a very short amount of time. They're growing like crazy. And I waited a few days to post this because he has some news, and you'll hear that at the end. But they're moving outside of Oklahoma for the first time, and they've just announced that officially, so we got to publish this episode. This is the first time I had a chance to speak with Jeff. He and his team are longtime Schedulefly customers. We're super proud to serve them. And I can't wait to get out there and hang out with Jeff and his team and dine in his places and just soak up the energy because he's full of lots of passion and lots of energy for this business and has just really done an amazing job in a short amount of time building Provision Concepts. So without further ado, before we get to Jeff, we're going to hear a quick word from our Schedulefly partner and our podcast sponsor, Pop Menu. Pop Menu is, well, they're a partner of Schedulefly, and we have a lot of happy mutual customers. But Pop Menu is all about making your day easier and your sales bigger. They will simplify your marketing operations, bring in more guests, capture customer data for personalized remarketing to keep them coming back. With one super simple to use platform that integrates with most point of sales like Toast and Square and a number of others, Pop Menu starts with a beautifully designed, easy to update interactive menu that transforms the guest experience online. It includes a brand new website that's optimized for search engines like Google for no additional cost, automated digital marketing, online ordering and waitlisting, and you'll never miss another call with their AI answering solution that costs as little as 47 cents an hour. Check it out. Check out the link in our show notes. There's so much more in Pop Menu. Here's my 2 cents. I've talked to a lot of our mutual customers, and here's what they say about Pop Menu. Great company, great customer service, great product, great results. Check out Pop Menu and check out this episode of Restaurant Owners Uncorked. All right, y'all. I've got Jeff Dixon here with me today. He's out in Edmond, Oklahoma, just outside of Oklahoma City. Jeff, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Will. That's right. Jeff Dixon, founder and CEO of Provision Concepts here in a suburb of Oklahoma City. It's called Edmond. We've got 13 stores in the state of Oklahoma, 8.5-year-old company. I've got 12 stores coming out of the ground. So those will be finished up by the time we hit 10 years of age as a company. And we've started to go parabolic. We first started off with one restaurant, but we've been scaling, and I've got a 10-store fund I'm about to launch. I'm about to go out of state for the first time. Tonight, I fly out to another state. I've already signed a lease, and depending on when this podcast airs, I can tell you more about that project because it's not public yet. But I'm going to go take a pic with a business journal tomorrow on my first out-of-state project. So fired up to be here and fired up about the business.
I mean, that is insane growth, man. Well, I got so many things I want to ask you about. Let's start just with what ignited your flame to get into hospitality in the first place? How did this all start? I know you went to, if I think I read correctly on LinkedIn, that you went to hospitality school at Oklahoma State. But what started all this?
I did torch 40 grand of my parents' cash going to Oklahoma State to get a hotel restaurant degree. It all started when I was growing up. I had a strong work ethic, and I threw papers and mowed yards, and I had an uncle in the business, and he owned his own little independent restaurant here in Oklahoma City. and I would come up to town. I grew up in Weatherford, an hour west of Oklahoma City, a little small rural town. And I would see him at work, and it was kind of lights, camera, action. He was working the room, and you could tell that, okay, this was his job, and he was putting smiles on people's faces. And it's like, okay, I remember that as a young kid. My first year at Oklahoma State, I wasn't a hotel restaurant major. I was a broadcast journalism major. Okay. I thought, sure, man, put me in front of a camera. I'll make some money. I'll be a celebrity. Like, you don't know what you're thinking when you're 18, 19 years old. So I did discover that degree had way more writing and, than I was prepared for. So I go back home between freshman and sophomore year. I'm 19. I'm living with my dad, and I needed a job for the summer. So I remembered my uncle, because I'm trying to find my way. I said, this broadcast journalism thing isn't for me. I said, let's try this restaurant business. And so I became a cook at a sports bar and grill in 1999. Maybe 2000. I'm 19 years of age, and I made $4.25 an hour in the kitchen, and I loved every minute. And so I switched my major to hotel restaurant at Oklahoma State in Stillwater. And for me, I equate it to organized chaos. And I was presented with a ticket for a guest table, and I got to provide a solution. It was very quick gratification process. And even more so now, kids who probably have a shorter attention span because of their, smartphone. For me, I feel the restaurant business is a cool outlet for someone young of age, because they, at least it was for me. I mean, that's where I got my start. So I'm 42. I started at 19 flipping burgers at a little sports bar and grill, and got my degree in hotel restaurant and started working in hospitality majority ever since.
Okay. I got you, man. I got you. Well, yes.
That's a long-winded first answer. I'm sorry.
No. I love that. There was something, it's always just something about the energy, and whether it was cooking or, dishes or bussing tables or what, everybody I speak to, when I ask their origin story, there's always just something about that energy that really, lights your fires. And it's an amazing thing. But I feel like there's just so many people that they started early, they started young, and they knew pretty quickly, like, okay, there's something about this. I've never heard anybody say it the way you put it, which I think is really cool, which is like, okay, it's a problem solution thing. I mean, that's a cool way to put it. I've never thought of it that way.
My job now, obviously running a company of 600, and we'll do over 30 million gross this year. And on the way to doubling that, we'll do over 60 million in a year and a half. My job's different. I wish I was in the stores more. I wish I was shaking hands, kissing babies, working with the product, working with the staff, checking in a produce order. I mean, that's the business. It's the people business. It's the relationship business. It's the experience business that we give our guests. And now my job looks very much different. But yeah, for my origin story, it's that you get hooked. You either love it or hate it. And if it's not for you, it'll chew you up and spit you out pretty quickly, because it's a difficult business. It's physically demanding. You're working when others aren't. And it's often thankless. I mean, but I fell in love with the camaraderie of my fellow crew members and team, and just giving that guest that experience and that product that you made. And that, again, for me, it was that quick gratification of problem solution. And long lead time projects, who likes those? I mean, they dredge on forever, and there's some lessons there. So yeah, I'll let you dive into further.
Oh, man, I love that. I love it so much. And so I really love that perspective. So y'all, started Provision Concepts in 2012, 13?
Yeah. So my business partner and I, Aaron, we formed it in 2013, and we
Okay.
started in his garage, and we inked our first lease and our first debt transaction. We had a co-signer. We had a group of investors. We talked ourselves into a letter of intent, and I had 30 days to put the deal together. So we incubated this restaurant a year before it opened. It opened our first restaurant, Broadway 10. It's a 8,000 square foot steakhouse in Oklahoma City. It opened December 2014. So we signed this lease, I think, January of 2014. And I think we formed the company in the fall or winter of 2013. And that's when we got going. Remind me your question, because again, I'll just rattle it on. But
that's it. I wanted to know when you got started, and then so you started it out of Aaron's garage. You had a plan. I can't imagine you planned for as much growth as you've had. I mean, I'm sure you planned for growth, but like the original plan, was it open this steakhouse, and then did you have other concepts in the back of your mind already, or what?
Zero. The first name of the restaurant was Chieftain's Steakhouse. Okay. And the metamorphosis of what a independent restaurant group looks like, maybe any group for that matter. Maybe Elon Musk has a similar story with all his companies. Who knows? But for us, it's very much the way we've conducted business is it's not too forward thinking. It's more of handle what the day brings you, and to take on being an independent restaurateur, you've got to have a little bit of crazy and a little bit of a yes mentality, because I often say the reason I am where I am is because I've said yes when it's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So the day we signed that first lease, and right before that, we secured 7 figures in debt financing. We just signed our biggest, put our homes on the line, personal guarantees, you name it. The developer showed us this 8,000 square foot space that gave us a shot to put our first restaurant in. The same day that the ink was drying on the lease, he asked us, and it's this big exhale of sign of relief. It's like, okay, it's like we got here. We now it's ours to screw up. He says, "You got 20 minutes?" And we looked at each other. We said, "Sure." He took us to another spot, and he said, "I think there'd be something else here that could be cool." And Aaron and I looked at each other, and we said, "We agree. Let's do it." And I've always said yes, and just stepped out on faith, and just pushed my work ethic to match my agreements to risk. And I never wanted to create a job for myself, which is fine for some. I didn't want just one restaurant that I was forced to work at. I wanted to grow out of just the one store and be my own guy above a level and run a company. And I don't have a corporate background, however, so I'm learning as much as anybody every day. And I have a mentor of mine who's in his 70s who admits he learns as much every day as I do in my 40s. And but yeah, there was no roadmap per se. To come back to your thought, it was just you just kept saying yes and kept taking opportunities that seemed appropriate and something that you could handle. And again, to get where I've gotten at the clip that we have in 8.5 years, I've got 13 stores open. That's more than one a year. I've had to say yes to some uncomfortability, and I've had to push myself and stretch myself. So my whole team has. I mean, I push everybody, and sometimes you say yes and figure out how to do it after. Sometimes you shoot first, ask questions later. And
well,
I'm learning to be a little more risk averse, and I've brought on some strong employees to help. I've got an attorney in house, a CPA in house, great business development uh, director in-house, great people out in the field. I mean, it's not Jeff. This whole interview doesn't need be about me. God, it's about my whole corporate team. So
absolutely. There must have been a lot of uncomfortable yeses, but you've got clearly enough self-confidence and an optimistic, driven personality, and belief that you can surround yourself, which is what I want to ask you about next, which is the team, because you obviously have. It's one thing to take an uncomfortable risk, say yes, and then, as you said, match your work ethic to it. But to have the growth y'all have had, you've had to have a lot of people match that work ethic and that creativity and that drive. And I'm so fascinated with, how you've been able to build a team of people that are all, I mean, I get it in the sense that you're obviously creating a lot of opportunity for people. I mean, you're adding all these jobs, right? And then with a growing company, people that, want to further their career, there's like endless opportunities, which is one of the great things about independent restaurant groups. I always feel like if you're, it's like this industry is so cool because you don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to have, some socioeconomic status. You don't have to, any race, any ethnicity. It's about work ethic and, wanting to welcome people into your home and provide them a wonderful experience, both as, for your fellow employees and for your guests. So this is like a very meritocratic industry that that's like the American dream is like, just doesn't matter who you are. If you're willing to work hard, you can, the sky's the limit. And groups like yours create that. Having said that, you've got to there must be a lot of pressure checks along the way with as fast growth as y'all have had. So just tell me about the team and what kind of folks you bring in there to help grow this great business.
There's probably 4 groups of teams. If I were to break it up into categories that you speak of, let's not forget the guest. First and foremost, they're the ones that purchase our discretionary, item. You don't need to go eat at one of Provision Concepts restaurants today or tomorrow. We've got to back it up. If we don't technically do the food and beverage and service correctly, we won't stay in the business very long. The difference that we try to provide is that experience to that guest and that relationship. So I'm often quoted to saying, I'm not in the food and beverage business, I'm in the relationship business. So that's the first group, that the team that gets us where we go, the guest. Second, close seconds is the staff, the team. Couldn't say that enough. A very close second. The third I'll say is my wife, my family. They sacrifice a lot, and all our families do. Any families who work in the hospitality industry, we're working when others are not. So that's a big ask. And fourth, let's not forget about the finance component. So lenders, equity investors. I mean, without the capital, if I told you earlier, I've spent the majority of my business in the hospitality business. For a year and a half, I tried something else, and I was a stockbroker.
Oh.
And I was a financial advisor, and I learned how to push myself to reach out of my comfort zone of doing another industry altogether. I learned how to raise capital. I learned how to speak about an investment. I learned a little bit about yield and return and how people feel about money. There are 2 things you don't mess with in life: somebody's family and somebody's money. You've got to be a good steward of that and a good fiduciary of that. A fifth category, just vendors in general. I mean, you can't make it very far in this business pushing your vendors around. I texted a gentleman who owns a mechanical company, heat and air and plumbing, that sort of thing, this weekend, thanking him for his staff's. We had a restaurant lose a hot water tank the day before Father's Day weekend. big weekend for gross revenue. And we had a water tank crack, and those guys showed up when they'd probably rather be at the lake, drinking a beer, being with their family. And so the mix of all of that, so the team and how you build that is integral, and you can't take one of them for granted. And it's a tough balance to show appreciation for everyone, but it makes all of us. It's a mutual respect for all of us, and like I said, you could go. There's plenty of restaurants to go eat at, and what makes another one survive versus something else? Does it have some things to do with basic things like location? Probably. Technical execution of the food and beverage, of course, but it really comes down to the team. People go support Rob Simpson at Reserva because Rob works the room and he makes relationships. People go support Karen at Broadway 10 because Karen works the room and makes relationships. And that's it, man. This business is people, and it's the toughest art form there is. It's not a science. When you deal with human feelings, it's and we all have good and bad days, and it's when you leave that restaurant or you leave that job for the day, it's how did you feel? It's not so much the technical, did I check this box or that? It's how do I feel going to support this person, going to support this experience. It's that extra touch of service at the end of the experience. If they dropped off the bill and they quoted the guest by their name because they just checked on the credit card, it's a summation of all of this. And was the music too loud, too soft? Was the lighting too bright, too dark? I mean, there's so many points. Here's a funny thing I like to say, and I'll let you get into wherever you want to take us next. And I'm going to dig at some of my landlord vendors. They'll laugh at this, but a landlord has to perform once every 5 years on renewal.
Right.
A restaurant has to perform every 5 minutes. There are so many opportunities to make a mistake every 5 minutes. So it's showtime for us every day.
It's man, look, I have one of the reasons that I love doing this podcast so much, and is that it has really made me fall in love with the industry that we serve at ScheduleFly, right? So I didn't have anywhere near 16 years ago when we started this, I had not anywhere near the appreciation and really just like profound respect for what you and your peers do, because it is 24/7, 365, and there are a million pieces that have to fit together perfectly every day to have a great day. And there's always something that comes up, and it's exactly what you just said. It's the water heater goes out. I mean, it's just, and I find it like, I think what you said earlier is what would happen to me is I think it would chew me up and spit me out. So I really admire the skill set that you and your peers have to do this and to do it well and to do it, for many years and just continue to thrive. I think it's fascinating. So I never can do enough of these because I just have a lot of respect for y'all. I think that you've clearly built a culture that you have figured out how to scale, because it's one thing to have your 8,000 square foot steakhouse and have this great and just all of the constituents that you mentioned, the customer and the investor, like to be able to take care of all of them and make them feel excellent. But then to figure out how to do, you can't scale yourself. So then you have to figure out, you can to a point, but you've gotten to a number of restaurants where you've instituted clearly a culture where your team thinks about and cares about those constituents as well. So I'm super curious about the culture you have there and how you've able, culture is sometimes just hard to scale. It's just, you get to a point where it's like, you know, well, it works at 1 or 2 or 3 locations where you can kind of have your hands on it to where you are and where you're going to go. How do you continue to scale that culture so that keeps working as you go from 30 million to 60 million and, you know, gross revenue in a short period of time?
Couple things on that. I will pay respect to where I was fortunate enough to come from and where quite a few of my corporate team was able to come from. That's Hal Smith Restaurant Group. He has 90 stores, I believe. He's the biggest regional player in the state of Oklahoma, and he's in multi-states. So they taught, what we learned from them was training. And I can't act like I'm at their level yet. When you got 12 restaurants and they've got 90, there's the amount of support staff and materials and resources and experience. They started in '87 with Charleston's, their first restaurant, and they worked for other guys and did other brands before that. So, you know, I've got to tip my cap to that group. The training to deliver the experiences that we try to do every day with our team, to the technical mechanics of teaching someone to serve and the certain steps of service and such. And there's a lot to it there. I think another thing, so that's objective. I would say a subjective component to that is finding people with passion and aligning people in the right moment in their life who can jump on a young, crazy train company and give it a risk. The guy who took the biggest risk is my chief operating officer. He was our first hire, first employee, still with the company. And he and his wife at the time didn't probably know the amount of risk they were signing themselves up for with, at the time, Aaron and I've since bought Aaron's interest out. So it's just me at the top right now. But he probably didn't know at the time what these two guys, if they had it all figured out yet, you know. And when you find someone in this business, which is traditionally full of transitional, you know, moments in people's life, if you can find someone at a right time where you can provide them a little more upside and a little more opportunity, and frankly, I suppose it's if they enjoy working with you, and they see where you're going. That's one reason why I left Hal, is I felt stagnant, and they were growing. They were growing at a good clip. Maybe I felt I wasn't showing them what it took to achieve what I wanted. So I'm able, I guess, I mean, it's kind of, you're asking kind of a inward reflecting question of, Jeff, how have you been able to do all this and talk these? Maybe I'm the one showing the emperor's wearing no clothes and showing, you know, how have I been able to talk all these people into it? I think I'm very open and honest with my team. And I think they know when Jeff speaks, he speaks from the heart. And I've got an intern with me this summer, Tucker. He's sitting over here on the couch, and I told him at lunch, I said, I didn't come from a big corporate background. So I did start as a fry cook, making $4 an hour. And this is one of those industries, like you said, Will, that you can start at the bottom and work your way to the top.
Yep.
You don't need a law degree. You don't need a medical degree. Blood, sweat, and tears, you can make it in this business. And I just told him, I think when Jeff speaks, he admits he's not the Harvard, you know, the MIT guy, but he gives it his best effort every single day, and he comes in and we've been able to achieve through a team some great results. And it hasn't come without road bumps. I mean, I'll take COVID 2020 over 22 any year. 22 was tough, man.
Really? Tell me about that.
Inflation was real. Cost of goods cut 3 points out of my gross profit instantly. And
Yeah.
in such a small margin business as the restaurant business usually is, that's painful. And you try not to pass that price that you pay for your groceries on to the guest. You try to be that last guy that holds out, but sometimes you got to run your business like a business and accept. And then when you raise your prices, you've got to then ensure that you really are giving great service and communicating with your team and your COVID. The government passed out subsidies. I didn't see too much of that in 22, and we're all starting to pay for some of those. Just what's happened over the last few years in this business, and surviving to be a mom and pop without corporate consolidated financials, without being publicly traded. You're the little guy has had his back against the wall for a good couple of years, and the strong survive. So my team is fantastic. I have great GMs and assistants and KMs who show up every day and lead their staff with smiles, giving out high fives and hot dogs, and just making this thing work. I mean, and it's that relationship with the guest. I can't say that enough about your regular guest and knowing them by first name and having a true connection, and don't do a flyby table touch. I mean, anytime I send out correspondence to my team as a group, it usually is centered around what are you doing to make a relationship and a fresh connection.
Yeah.
And if you can't recall the gentleman's name at the bar that comes in twice a week, don't be afraid to apologize and say, ask for it, and then go jot it down in a little black book in the office. So the next time he comes in, you can look who this description is up of this gentleman, this guy or girl, and just continue on that relationship. I mean, anymore, you can't take what we do for granted, because the food, the beverage, it's a commodity. I've said it time and time again. I'll kind of close out on this section, but it's finding a team to believe kind of the route that we're going, and to stick with you during the valleys. Success isn't from I don't know, maybe mirrored here, bottom right to upper left. I don't know if that did it vice versa, but
No, it's a roller coaster.
It is. And oftentimes it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and then 5 steps forward and 1 step back. And it's not how you it's how you handle the adversity through the 2020s, through the 2022s, because it's coming. That's not a question of if it's coming or if it's not, it's how you handle it. And if you've got a strong team and you said culture, I didn't grow up in, here's what we need to do for this culture. I'm real. I wear my heart on my sleeve. People know if I'm having, a rough go or not. And I'm usually a happy-go-lucky guy to be in this business. And I'm rambling, so I'm going to close in a second and let you keep going. But you've got to be a guy that wakes up and goes for no, and you can't let little things hit you. I mean, you've just got to keep putting 1 step in front of the other. And I think oftentimes there's not enough encouragement in this world. And we as a service business, I mean, we are here with open arms and the welcoming groups. And I love it, man. I love the game.
All right, y'all. Time for a little mid-episode break to talk about Kickfin, our mid-episode sponsor and a great business. Thousands of restaurants, bars, and breweries use Kickfin to tip out their employees instantly, no cash required. With Kickfin, tips go directly to your employer's bank of choice the second their shift ends. It's a really simple solution to a really big problem, because if you're still paying out credit card tips in cash, it's costing you. Time-consuming bank runs and cash counting take managers away from work that matters. Cash is hard to track, which leads to accounting headaches, and it creates the perfect opportunity for theft, human error, and compliance issues. Bottom line, there's never been an instant, secure way to pay out tips until Kickfin. It's an easy-to-use software that sends real-time cashless tip payouts straight to your employees' bank accounts 24/7, 365. Kickfin gives managers hours back in their day, makes reporting a breeze, and protects your business from risk. Most importantly, employees love it. Restaurants can have Kickfin up and running overnight. Employees can enroll in seconds. No hardware, no contracts, no setup fees. Visit kickfin.com for a personalized demo and see how restaurants across the country are digitizing tips with Kickfin. That's what they like me to read. I will tell you this. I know the folks at Kickfin. Check out the episode with Brian Hassan, the co-CEO of Kickfin, was on here on the podcast. Great people, love what they do. They treat their customers well. We have mutual customers that love the product and love the way they, the relationship they have with Kickfin. So check it out, link in the show notes, and let's check out the rest of this episode.
Well, I love your passion, and it comes across so authentically, Jeff. It really does. And look, man, like, I mean, this is our first time doing this, but we've talked and I text you and you text back. And I mean, it's very clear to me that you really do love what you do and you enjoy it. I remember the first time I spoke with you on the phone, I was like, I got off the phone. I was over at Lowe's. I remember talking to you and I'm like, man, I feel more energetic now. Just your energy is really infectious, man. And look, to do what you do and to lead a company that size, you got to have it. One of the things you said, which I think is like, even if you want to share this with the rest of your team, how important that stuff is with knowing your guest name and your regular's name and how that is to people. We're people live on these screens so much now, and everything is, there's just, the personal touch is lost more and more. Just kind of where, and it's amazing to me how much of a difference it makes when somebody takes the time to actually truly be intentional with being present and aware that you're their customer or their guest. So much so that we've never made a sales call with ScheduleFly. This has just been word of mouth, and people take it like you probably had it at House Smith. I know we serve a lot of those, and we've never done that. But I went to a restaurant a few years back, and I was sitting at the bar, and I had never been, and they were not a customer of ours. But the bartender, when I first got there, and took my order, and it was probably 15 or 20 minutes, finish my beer. I comes back and says, hey, Will, would you like another Bud Light or whatever? And the fact that he remembered my name 20 minutes later impressed me so much that I sent the only sales email I've ever sent. I said, look, like, I would do anything to serve your restaurant because I appreciate so much your service style, and it's so important to us. Like, we care very deeply about who we serve at ScheduleFly and the types of, it means so much to us. And so that one example, it blew me away because it was so common to get somebody to pay attention to my name and then remember it 20 minutes later. I'm like, and they're a customer now, and I've gotten to know the owners and their friends, and it all aligns because that's how they roll, like, as owners, and their restaurants here, like, they have a few of them, and it's like, that's why they're so good at what they do. I mean, yes, the food's got to work, it's all that stuff, but it's that level of connection with the guests is like just so key.
And I don't think we can take for granted enough communicating how important that is. And I'm going to give you a little plug. You didn't ask me for this. You didn't preface me anything on this podcast. It's just, let's jump on and see where this road goes.
Yep.
So I don't know where you're at. Where are you from right now? Where are you sitting? What state? What city?
I'm in North Carolina. I'm in Waxhaw, just south of Charlotte.
Okay. So we had a Saturday night in Oklahoma, we had a pretty nasty thunderstorm roll through, and it hit Tulsa, Oklahoma really hard. We've got 3 stores in that community, and power's going to be out for 5 or 6 days in a massive area. Tucker just told me 700 poles went down. A huge grid is out. I jumped on your platform before lunch. I shot a little one-liner to a specific store that's without power right now. Already spoken to my insurance claims guy this morning, doing all the technical things, but I just sent a little one-line communication to the hourly staff. I've been in communication and my team's been in communication with the GM and all that, but I sent a little communication to the hourly team, and I guess I'm patting myself on the back, but that's not the intent. The intent is to share with you how important it is for that gentleman's restaurant or girl's restaurant who you sat at, that they probably teach and coach that relationship and that connection. And you can get lucky and have 600 people that care about the guest, but it's not a bad idea to teach and coach that, to breed that environment and that culture of offering you that Bud Light by your first name, and having that wherewithal and that, in your mind to create relationships and connections. So I just sent him a little one-liner, hang with this team. We're on it. Alex has been a great leader, and such a cool platform. I hit it by email, hit it by text, hit it by importance. So it's pinned at the top, and they all got it. People are digging it. And it's like, I don't know, man, kudos to you for making the platform. And it's something you do need to breed. It's not going to happen on its own. It can happen organically, but there's something to adding fertilizer to a tree, giving it some water. I mean, you got to nurse it along. So
I love that, man. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I'm glad that's what we want. We want it to be, make communication super simple and quick and easy for everybody. Tell me about, you've got a lot of concepts there. You've got your brunch concept, Hatch, that is really starting to take off. You've got, I think, was it 3 or 4? How many licensees do you have now?
Yeah, so it's really awesome. What started off as a corporate brand of our own, we have pushed ourselves to do something that I didn't grow up learning, and we started to allow others to use our intellectual property, our recipes. They've started off as licensees because that's a simpler civil agreement that's no longer in 30 pages. And I brought in-house counsel in, not only because he's one of my best friends and since college, also an attorney, and also been studying franchise law. And I knew to pay for this 300-page franchise disclosure document, attorneys are expensive. And I said, just come in-house, let's grow this thing together. And we've started to draft and finalize our franchise disclosure document. So I've got 3 corporate hatches open. I've got 3 licensees signed up. 2 will open this calendar year, and those are convertible to franchise agreements. And I've got a hatch that we haven't announced yet corporately. Another one we've announced. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 corporate coming out of the ground. So that'll be 7 corporate hatches and 3 licensees. And the goal is to have about 50, 60 franchisees for that particular concept. And, Hatch was born in 2016, and it was an alternative to blue collar diner, where in a lot of kind of diners in this area didn't even play music in the dining room. And what if I could charge an extra $1 or $2 for a plate and execute it, I feel a little higher end and provide a little higher, nicer environment. I think we'd have an opportunity, and it's been just a hit, man. It's been such a smash. Super fired up about it. We're not the only, nice, fun breakfast concept that's sweeping the nation, but we have something that has got legs, and Another brand I want you to focus on when we're done here is I want you to look at Reserva. Mediterranean tapas, partnered with a chef out of Scottsdale to help do the food. Incredible brand. It's got legs. I'm going to do some of those in the state that I'm going to this evening. When's this going to air so I can break this news? Maybe when will you launch this?
Well, that can be on your schedule then. If it's, when would you like me to air it? If you want to break something.
Well, I'll just, how are you going to do it on what platform? On a podcast or on a social side or on a legitimate podcast?
Oh, dude, we've got, our Restaurant Owners Uncorked podcast is, I mean, we'll have our 500th episode done by the end of the year. We're the 6th highest rated hospitality podcast. So we got a good audience. So
well, I'll keep it to myself so you can go ahead and edit this and send it out to your audience. And then we'll do a follow-up little feature somehow and I'll break it then. But Hatch has been incredible. The first time actually, the idea that we came up to license the brand was I was cold called by a group out of Atlanta that was interested in the brand. And I thought this was a prank call. I hung up on them on more than one occasion. I said, there's no way you want to give me money to use our recipes or I was like, what is this? And thankfully, with enough perseverance on their end, I started to take this inquiry seriously. And yeah, we're going to have a hatch in Oklahoma City Airport. Construction begins in August in multiple cities throughout Oklahoma. And then we're going to go to another state with it. And I've interviewed folks in several states for the brand. So I'm excited about that.
Wow. And you think so 50 or 60, you think is where you...
Let's go, man. Let's go.
Is that a number that you, I think I might know the answer to this question, but is that a very carefully planned number or is that just?
No, you've got to have a goal. If you don't, you're just shooting. You've got to have a target. You got to know where you're aiming at and you've got to push yourself outside your boundaries. If you set a goal that doesn't have an end date what is this? It's called a SMART goal.
Yeah.
You're going to take your time in getting it done. If you put a specific date and a specific time, you're going to stay there until you hit it. And I've learned a few things about these goals of mine that I set for myself and my team. I will put 9 p.m. on a Friday if it's a big project. For example, this franchise database that we've given access to all our licensees, soon to be franchisees. Massive document. I mean, when you create a restaurant, you have all these spreadsheets, templates. A lot of it's going, thankfully, to smarter people than I and cloud-based and easy ways to grab it. But we have all these tools that help us make us successful. Line check sheets and all this and that. And what makes a hatch a hatch? And what's the marketing brand? What's the spec Sherwin-Williams paint colors? What you name it, the equipment package, the china, the stemware. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. And to give this supplement to these licensees and franchisees, I gave myself a goal, my team, Friday at 9 p.m. so we could spend a few late nights and to push, okay, we're 3 hours out and you got a running checklist of what you got left and we're all getting it there. And so 50 or 60, why? Because that's uncomfortable, because you've got to push. Yeah. Because if I don't hire a trainer to work out at the gym, I'm going to go in and loaf. I'm going to do a few reps and I'm going to call it. Or if I got a guy that's pushing me, I'll do a few more sets, a few more reps. I'll push to failure. I mean, that's not my job's to push us all. And even if myself, everyone doesn't like it, it all provides a rising tide for us all. And when you wake up every day and you're self-employed and you've got to go for it and eat what you kill. And there's not much time to rest on your laurels and loaf. I mean, you've got to have that passion and fire and vigor. And
you clearly have it, brother. You clearly have it. I get why people would want to work with you, man. If I was out that way and I was in your industry, I'd be all over it. I mean that, man. I love talking to you. I love listening to all the wisdom and pride you have in what you do and the intention you take into it, and just the hustle and the grind, man. I love that.
That's
Love
it.
those aggressive goals, and yeah, man, it's fantastic. Well, I mean, I'm probably going to get this up in the next couple of days, but if it's something that you want me to wait till like the end of the week or next week or whatever, I can. It's up to you. I mean, I'm cool with whatever works for you.
So let's go for it. Why not? We'll break this. So I'm opening up a Broadway 10 in Denver, Colorado, home of the world champion Denver Nuggets. They just won.
Yeah.
They just won. There's a district called Cherry Creek, and it's a really nice district southeast of downtown. And a developer, owns property here in this state, and he started coming into our Broadway 10, our flagship store, and took note of what we were doing. And what once was a one-off, just a single store, I pushed myself. I said, Jeff, for the restaurant that's producing the most, gross revenue and dollars to the bottom line, it was named after the intersection, 10th and Broadway. But why limit yourself? And let's create more. So we announced one in a really nice development that's going in northwest Oklahoma City and Edmond. Recently, that's going to be our second Broadway 10. This one will be our third, and it'll be our first project out of state. The lease is already inked, getting on a big banknote, and I believe in the development and the area. And when I look at these other markets, Colorado, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma is a good training ground. So for me, when I look at comps in other restaurants, the volumes are so superior. Different landscape. There's lots of different things to not be naive to, with higher rates of pay and this, that, and the other. But the density in these communities, like the Denvers, the Phoenixes, the Chef James Fox, who we've partnered with Reserva, has a restaurant in Scottsdale. You go visit these places, and these restaurants are just incredible. And Oklahoma just lacks the population. We finally have an NBA team. We're coming up. It's a great training ground. But I'm super excited to take Provision multi-state and experience some of these larger markets and be a part of a bigger, picture in the nation. I'm not afraid to go toe to toe with other groups, and you can't, because iron sharpens iron. And I'm about to bring Chef James Fox on, not just as a chef partner in a few small concepts. I've got him in Culprits, which is a brand we created in a brand new Renaissance hotel in our entertainment district called Bricktown here in Oklahoma City. We also did Reserva together, but I'm going to bring him on to freshen up ourselves all across the board, from Hatch to Broadway 10 to you name it. And I've got about 7 or 8 concepts between 13 stores today, going on 25 tomorrow. But when you go to these other markets, you've got to bring it, because if you don't, you'll probably get your butt handed to you. And I'm fired up for competition. I mean, in high school, I played basketball, and I wasn't the greatest guy. I wasn't the biggest guy. I practiced, I made the team. Didn't see much PT on the court, but the coach instilled in me some things and a few one-liners that I'll never forget. One of them is if you don't like something about yourself, change it. And in this business, you have to stay fresh. And if you don't like, if your restaurant's, I'm not saying Broadway 10 is getting stale, but you've got to push the envelope on excitement, and you got to know your customer. You got to know your guest. You can't be something that is too far wild out of the norm. I'm in the Bible Belt. I'm in the middle of the nation, so it's pretty conservative where I'm at, and that goes for food. That goes for every kind of offering. The further you go out to the coasts, the more progressive they become with food and beverage. And if I'm going to go to Colorado, if I'm going to go to Phoenix, I've got a letter of intent on a property in Phoenix right now. I might as well come out with all my secrets. Here, you heard it first with Will from the Schedule Fly podcast.
There you go.
I've got to bring it, and my team. I know I'm not afraid, and my team is ready to back it up as well. So, and we do things great anyway, but it's adding that extra little 10% to the menu to touch it up, to freshen it up. That if you've got some dogs on the menu, freshen it up. If you want to do some finer points of service, tableside carving, if you want to bring out an old-fashioned cart, which we introduced at one of our new restaurants a year and a half ago, guests love that. You're just giving them a show tableside. I mean, smoke the glass right in front of them, tableside. How cool is that? So.
Love it, man. Love it. Congratulations.
Like I said, right now my job's a desk job, but it started with my boots on the ground, making relationships and experiences, one guest at a time. And that's the business, man. And I love it. And
so you go to Denver tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, I'm taking a picture with the Denver Business Journal tomorrow with the developer in front of this site. They just topped the building now. It's a 60,000 square foot building in the heart of Cherry Creek. And we're going to have an incredible restaurant there.
Congratulate. Well, then, so the Denver Business Journal, when will that run, or when will y'all issue a press release?
I'm gonna ask. So we've got the draft of the press release drafted, and I'll see if we can break the story this week, and so that way you can go ahead and crank yours out, and it'll be simultaneous with that.
Cool. Well, let me know when you do. Just shoot me a text or give me a call.
I will.
Now I'll wait, and I'll have it ready, and I'll post it in that. Oh, brother, this is great. I really enjoyed this a lot. Congratulations to you, to your team. Safe travels, and let's do this again sometime, man. I really, really, really want to get out there. It's going to be a little while before I'm traveling anywhere, but I do want to get out there and meet you and thank you in person. I so appreciate you taking the time. We so appreciate your business at Schedule Fly, and just, man, I'm so charged for, I don't need the afternoon caffeine, man. You got me fired up, brother. You do. Your passion is contagious.
Well, man, I'll repeat the appreciation. Will, you're a big part of what we do. We utilize your service more than you think, from just documentation, not to get it's a sad part of the job of any business to just document things that happen, but it's a good tool. And it's a good platform. So we use it at all our stores. So 13 going on 25.
We'll take it, man. We'll take it. Appreciate you, Jeff. Thank you, man.
Cheers, Will. Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon.
Right, have a safe trip. See you.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Hey, y'all, before you sign out on this episode, a couple of quick things. Number one, if you listen to us on iTunes, if you could give us a star rating and a comment, it would help so much. Same thing if you're on Spotify, follow us, or any platform that you're on. If you would just do whatever their rating or follow options are. What that does is it tells the algorithms that this content is good and meaningful and valuable, and it'll tell them to put it in front of more people. So thank you for doing that. If you take the second to do that, that'd be so awesome. And also, if your restaurant is either using Excel or you're using some software that's expensive and has a lot of bells and whistles you don't need, or maybe doesn't have great customer service, we'd love to take care of you at Schedule Fly. Simple, easy restaurant employee scheduling software, legendary customer service, 30-day free trial, schedulefly.com. My cell phone number's on the trial sign-up page. Thank you for listening. See ya.